Hi, this is Dr. Sorrell from the Purdue Language and Culture Exchange, otherwise known as the PLACE program. The primary purpose of the PLACE program is to help international students as they navigate the language and cultural transition to U.S. universities. And this past Wednesday, there was an email from President of Purdue, Mitch, and the subject line of that email created some confusion. I think that our examination of that confusion is a good case study in the sort of misunderstandings that we try to help people understand and navigate through. So the statement that was in the subject line was this right here, statement on harassment of Chinese student. And some alumni, Chinese alumni and students saw this as a rather inflammatory statement that was a blanket accusation against Chinese students. And I want to break that down and try to analyze it and see why that really is not the intention of this statement. In fact, just the opposite. So if we look at this construction of a noun phrase of another noun phrase, the relationships that can indicate are very different. There are quite a few different relationships that can indicate. So in this case, this example, the smell is coming from, it's emanating from the freshly baked cookies. So many students might look at that and say, well, this statement, harassment of Chinese student, it must be that the harassment is coming from Chinese student, this noun phrase. But that is really not a good interpretation of that expression. Let's take a look at another example that will help us to understand that. So if we look at a similar noun here, attainment. So attainment comes from the transitive verb attain. So a student attains a degree. So in this case, the attainment and a graduate degree, the graduate degree is the object, what is obtained. So it doesn't say anything, this phrase doesn't say anything about who is attaining the degree. It just is focusing on the degree, the object that was attained. Another example here is destruction. All right, so destruction comes from the transitive verb destroy. So something or someone is destroying rainforest habitats. And rainforest habitats are the object. They're the victims of this destruction. This expression here, this phrase, does not tell us who or what is doing the destruction. One more example here is pollution. So the pollution, so from the transitive verb pollute, so something or someone is polluting local waterways. So again, local waterways is the focus of this expression. It's the victim of, the object of the pollution. Now that doesn't mean that this construction, in which case you have a transitive verb, a noun from a transitive verb, that the noun in the of phrase is always the object. It can be the agent as well. So for example, here's one, the cheering of the Purdue fans. So the Purdue fans are in fact the agents. They are the ones doing the cheering. So you can really understand why this phrase could be confusing to someone whose first language is not English. So looking at this relationship, it can be ambiguous. So looking back at this one, there's another aspect of this which is helping to cause, it's contributing to the confusion. And that is something called telegraphic speech. Back in the day of telegraphs, you had to pay for each character that you sent. So it was really a good idea to limit the number of characters and cut down the number of words to the absolute minimum since you're paying for each one of them. We still use this sort of telegraphic speech in headlines in newspapers or in titles or possibly in the subject line of emails. So if we look at this one, both noun phrases, harassment and Chinese student, are missing the articles. There are no determiners in this. In normal English grammar, you would say the harassment of a Chinese student. But in this case, especially in the second one, is missing. So in normal English grammar, if you saw of Chinese student, if it's a singular, it would have to have the Chinese student, this Chinese student, that Chinese student, a Chinese student. It would have to have some sort of determiner. If you didn't see a determiner, you would anticipate a plural. So of Chinese students would be what you might think is going to come. So a plural would not require a determiner. So in this case, if I'm reading along this, in normal English grammar, I'm going to anticipate, I'm going to expect a plural, not a singular. Now adding to this ambiguity of the telegraphic speech is Chinese grammar. So in Chinese, if I say Chinese student, that would be 中国学生. Now that could be one Chinese student, or it could be plural. It could be several Chinese students. In Chinese, it's not specified. And so altogether, we have three different things which are causing confusion. So the Chinese does not mark the plural normally. We could say that's 一位中国学生. So it'd be one Chinese student, but that's the number of Chinese students is not really the focus here. It's the fact that a Chinese student was harassed. So that's really not the focus. So it's ambiguous in Chinese, and in the English and telegraphic speech, it's also ambiguous. And then we add that to the fact that this construction, this of construction, can also have multiple meanings. So altogether, this is creating a situation where this phrase could be misunderstood very easily. So one of the things that we want to learn from this, and one of the things that we try to teach in the PLACE program, is that when we are, as writers or readers, speakers or listeners, it's really important for us to hit the pause button sometimes and analyze before we react. Languages and cultures are complex systems, and it is incredibly easy to have miscommunication. So it's really important for us to occasionally hit that pause button and think before we react, especially if we're reacting angrily. Thank you so much.